As I was getting ready for my first campaign event, I was trimming my beard and the razor broke and took out a huge chunk right there. I was like, yeah, Rob, have you not already taken enough hair from me? Like, this too?
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Getting to Know. I'm your guest host, Rami Sultan, and with me today is Omar Din. So let's jump right into it. Omar Din, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You don't know how long I've been wanting to put you in the hot seat and ask you a few questions.
You have to get in line in that case.
Tell me your name and where you grew up.
My name is Omar Din, and I grew up in Sunnyvale.
And what was your dream job as a kid?
To be an elected official.
Spoiler alert.
I know, right?
Where did you go to college?
I went to De Anza Community College, and then I transferred to Cornell University, where I got my degree in public policy.
Tell me about your family.
Oh, I have a big family. Some might say too big. 4 sisters, 1 younger brother, and 2 incredible parents. Alhamdulillah.
And tell me something that people typically don't know about you.
Probably that I actually really love to do art as a hobby.
And when can you do my portrait?
I think that'd be a fun thing to do.
How long have you been part of the community?
Well, I'm 26 years old, so 26 years.
How would you describe yourself in one word?
Driven.
Do you have a favorite homemade dish?
Chicken tikka masala.
Can you tell me one thing that you can't live without?
It's either gonna be caffeine or my phone.
What do you do to relax?
Staying at home, watching TV, just decompressing, turning my phone off. Those are big ones.
Anything you like to watch?
I'm rewatching BoJack Horseman right now, which is on Netflix.
What's the top thing on your bucket list?
I want to ride a roller coaster.
If you were an ice cream flavor, what would that flavor be?
Neapolitan.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Cats or dogs?
Cat.
Coffee or tea?
Chai.
Sunrise or sunset?
So who's awake for a sunrise? No, because you have Fajr. That's right. You almost caught me.
What job would you be terrible at?
Campaign manager, actually.
What's the hardest part of your job?
Sticking to your values.
What do you like best about your job?
Impacting people's lives.
What's the biggest deal breaker for you in your job?
If somebody tells you a direct lie, then you know you can never trust them again.
What's the most common question that you get?
Do you support a ceasefire? Obviously I do.
What's the smartest question that you've ever got?
I was doing a program at one of the masajid, and one of these kids, it was only like 12 or 13, and he asked me, he's like, how do you reconcile moments in politics when your faith and what people want might be at odds? Like, let's say abortion. And I was like, that one was a very impressive question.
Can you think of the most unexpected question that you've ever received?
Not even water?
You're talking about fasting.
Yeah. It's such a cliche joke, but it is for a reason.
How important is faith to you?
Extremely. One of the biggest weaknesses of the heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about is a love of power. That's something you have to fight, because it's in every human. The akhirah is the biggest future of all. And if you don't keep that in mind, you're gonna fall apart. And so that's what keeps me grounded.
What's your favorite surah from the Quran?
Surah Al-Fajr. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي الجنة. The work that I've gotten the opportunity to do, alhamdulillah, over the last 2 months, which has just been so incredible, but it's hard. Keeping that in mind and knowing that that's the goal, that when one day all of us are gonna die, and hearing the angels say that as your soul leaves your body, that's what keeps me moving forward.
Favorite name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Ar-Rahman. We all make mistakes, so knowing that that's who he is. A great line I once heard a sheikh say, you worship the God you believe in. It allows us the flexibility to make mistakes, but stay within, the Sirat al-Mustaqim to keep moving forward.
Omar ibn al-Khattab or Abu Bakr as-Siddiq?
You're asking Omar? Abu Bakr, just Omar ibn al-Khattab.
If you could have dinner with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Salahuddin, everything that he was able to do for the Ummah and learning about what that leadership looked like and what the advice would come from that. Or it would be my future wife, because I really want to know who she is.
What are some personal rules that you never break?
I think in politics, what you realize very quickly is you need to figure out what your lines in the sand are, because you're going to get tested on everything. Every issue, there are going to be some people who gain, some people lose. In politics, you can't afford to get your way every time, unfortunately, because then it's just not sustainable. But there have to be some things where you're like, I don't care what it costs me, I'm never gonna do it. And so for me, that's issues around Palestine, it's issues around the Muslim community, and around civil rights. And I think that's really what inspired me to go into government to begin with. And so today, as I govern, those are what I keep in mind.
If we ask the 5 closest people to you, what would they say that your best trait is?
Just my determination.
What's on your home screen right now?
Oh, all right, I get to show off a bit. This is a painting that I did
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
That's impressive. Tell me about your most embarrassing moment.
As I was getting ready for my first campaign event, I was trimming my beard and the razor broke and took out a huge chunk right there. For the first time since I grew out my beard, I had to shave the rest of it all off, and I had just a goatee for like 2 weeks into the campaign. I was like, yeah, Rob, have you not already taken enough hair from me? Like, this too?
What drove you to pursue a career in politics?
Growing up in the Muslim community in the Bay Area, I don't think there's a better crash course in politics than our community. And Islam, and this is the beauty of it, and I say this, it's the only religion, I think, that puts justice at its core. And so when you grow up in that, there's no way that you don't end up in politics fighting for justice.
What distinguishes you as a candidate for state assembly?
If I'm elected, I'd be the first Pakistani American to ever serve in the state legislature in its entire history. But on top of that, I think just my background being a vice mayor and being on a city council, it teaches you so much about how to actually govern and how to do it well. Because you can have all the right values, but if you don't know what you're doing, then none of those values turn into actual work or actual outcomes.
What do you believe the top 3 priorities for the district are?
Housing affordability, traffic, and public safety.
What inspired you to enter politics and pursue public service?
When I was 10 years old was the first time that I really saw what white phosphorus does to a child. And that image has been seared into my head ever since. When I went to school the next day, I told other students about it. I was like, have you heard that this is happening? The teachers would be like, oh, well, why are these people trying to steal the land? Right? Or things like that. It never made a sense to me how propaganda worked, how all these things worked. And it took years for me to really understand that that's right, how politics works and the ways that these happen. That showed me that there was a real need to get people from our side into office, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to protect us but ourselves, it seems.
Do you think that's because a lot of these politicians don't know who Muslims are? Like, don't actually have never met a Muslim?
I think that's a part of it. I think they just think there are other communities, other interests, other groups that they need to be more worried about, and they don't need to worry about the Muslims. If by stepping on the Muslims, they can get gains in other parts of the political world, they're willing to do it. Our community has changed, and now we're waking up to our own power, and we're seeing it.
What specific policies do you propose to improve education in your district?
The cool thing about the state assembly is, even though I'm there on behalf of my district, we're setting policies for the entire state. And the biggest thing is how we fund and put resources into our schools. Compared to the rest of the country, our schools are significantly under-resourced. We need to change that. It's unacceptable that teachers are having to go out and buy supplies for their classrooms and their students on their own dime to supplement what the state isn't spending, along with the actual curriculum that we're putting in place. If we don't have people that actually understand a lot of these things, then the way that they're taught to everyone by and large is going to be flawed. I'm really excited about the prospect of getting into the legislature. I could be the one to help decide that kind of curriculum, to decide how people talk about our community outside of our community.
How do you plan to promote economic growth and job creation?
We have to support small businesses. Just watching my own parents' experience, because my dad runs a private practice, my mom runs a daycare, both of which are small businesses, I've really seen the way that state policies can impact how these things are helped or hurt. Regulations can get in the way. And so I think finding that balance and creating an environment where businesses can come in, where you can start businesses easier, and there's not any sense of monopoly from any other groups, that's the way that we can really revitalize the economy itself.
What steps would you take to address environmental issues and climate change?
The technologies that we're creating here in this district, in Silicon Valley, are literally changing the entire world. And so keeping that supported, keeping that going is a big part of it, but also it's the way that we develop our land. Because when you plan your cities correctly, people can live better lives as a result, and all of it just leads to a better quality of life for everybody.
Do you have a favorite politician or politicians?
I'm definitely inspired by Rashida, seeing the ways that people from our community can move up not just the ladder itself, but also stay true to the community and to their values along the way. And so seeing people like Rashida and other even Muslim elected officials, I'm a huge fan of a state assembly member out of New York named Zahran Mamdani, also Muslim, who's just been steadfast in standing by the community. And I think that's the model I want to follow if I'm elected, inshallah.
With the high cost of living in your district, how would you support young people in trying to afford a living wage?
One is in the wage itself, right? We need to be setting policies within the workforce that protect our workforce, that make it easier to get jobs, provide better jobs for people. But also, a big part of when you're talking about affordability is what's the biggest cost that people have to spend their money on. In this district and in this state, that's housing. And so the biggest thing that we can do to help people, especially when it comes to wages, is lowering the cost of housing. And the way we do that is by increasing our supply of housing in smart ways. That way we're building more housing so that the cost goes down over time, but we're doing it in ways where we're not just leading to increases in traffic, we're not leading to resources being overused, right? We're developing in well thought out ways that mitigate for that. And these are all things I learned while I've been on a city council. And so taking that knowledge base to the state legislature is important, because then you actually know how to change policy for the better, not for the worse.
How would you go about representing such a diverse constituency?
Making sure everyone has a seat at the table. It's about bringing these groups in, about meeting with them consistently, and about allowing yourself to have an open door to them. Because if from the get-go you've already made up your mind on how you're going to do something or what you're going to do, obviously you need to have the right beliefs ahead of time. But if you've already made up your mind and you're not allowing yourself to hear other people, other experiences, other perspectives, you're just going to get worse policies as a result, let alone the morality of that.
What would you want your legacy to be?
If people even think about me 10 years from now, 15 years from now, however long, I'd want them to think that's somebody who fought for justice. That's somebody who stood by his values. That's the goal.
Well, Omar Din, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate having you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
All right,